What's been for you, looking back over this past year, the most symbolic or the most telling moment of Emmanuel Macron's presidency so far?
Well, I think the whole package of reforms that Macron has pushed through has been quite dizzying. He is a president in a hurry. He knows he has a limited period during which to get contentious economic and social reforms onto the statute books. And the past year has seen reforms tabled at a dizzying pace. Macron has learned lessons here from his three most recent predecessors, Chirac, Sarkozy, and Hollande, who all failed to catch the early wave that can carry the boldest reforms.
And it's interesting what you're saying, because Macron seems to have had momentum despite the strike movement, despite the people in the streets. It doesn't seem to be provoking as much anger and upset as similar type programs did for those previous presidents you just mentioned.
Yes, Macron has had a charmed life in this first year, it has to be said. He has benefited from three crucial factors: a mandate to carry out his reforms. He said what he would do, and now he's doing it. A divided and severely weakened opposition, both on the left and on the right. And finally, a clear majority to see his reforms through Parliament. These are major, major assets to a reforming president. So he has been lucky. He's played his hand very skillfully, but he has been lucky and so far has had a charmed life.
Well, it does seem like the reforms he's pushing through are very good for the business world, perhaps for the French economy. But many of his critics have slammed the president as being the president of the wealthy. Do you think that there's truth to that, and we could see a greater divide between the rich and the middle class and poor here in France?
Oh, that's absolutely the key criticism being leveled against Macron, potentially the most damaging criticism, that he is a president of the rich. Macron's reforms have had a single driving aim: to make France more competitive economically. He cut back the wealth tax, he lowered taxes on the super rich, he made it easier for companies to hire and fire, and now he's tackling the special regime of rights and privileges enjoyed by rail workers. His economic project is quite simply about cutting public spending and liberalising France's economic model. And that's the frame into which the hike in social security contributions that your package talked about fits.
Jim, Macron's also made a name for himself internationally, really getting in there, so to speak, with leaders like Vladimir Putin or Donald Trump. Tell us a bit more about the success he's had, or not, on the international stage.
Well, Macron's single most important foreign policy success, you could say, has been to restore France's image on the world stage. That's a huge part of his presidential project. And his air miles in the past year have been impressive, has to be said. Big trade deals in China and India, many trips to Africa, mediating and military interventions in the Middle East, and a lot of diplomatic work further afield to put France on the world map. Macron understands the value of what has been called soft power, prestige and influence, projecting the sense that France matters on the international stage. And here, it has to be said, he has done a good job in proclaiming, as he put it, that France is back.
Jim, just as you were speaking, we were seeing some pictures of that image of Donald Trump brushing what he said was dandruff off of Macron's shoulder. And it's true, we have seen a year that's been full of those little moments like that. If you were to choose perhaps the funniest, the strangest moment, the most visual moment of Macron's presidency, what would that be for you so far?
You've just summed it up. You've just put your finger on it. It was that shot of Trump and Macron together, and Trump behaving like some kind of alpha primate towards Macron. That really took some believing. Of course, underneath the kisses and the hugs and the removal of dandruff, there are very complex geopolitical considerations. And here Macron, I think, has a firm grasp of realpolitik. He knows that France can no longer exist in the splendid isolation that de Gaulle sought to create in the 1960s. It's a vital part of the Western alliance that remains crucial for the defense of France and Europe. So good relations with the US and whoever the president is matter hugely.
Jim, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us there. Jim Shields is speaking to me live from Bristol in the UK.